Hello, welcome. As you won't be surprised to hear, it's a Sheffield Wednesday special. Big events at Hillsborough, a new manager, yet another new manager for the Owls as they look to find a path to safety and eventually to promotion from the Premier League. Tony Pulis has been appointed, and I can think of no two better guests than the Sheffield Wednesday writer who's made the most appearances on this show since it started 6 years ago, Dom Howson, and also Sheffield Wednesday's still longest serving manager in a quarter of a century. In the 25 years since Trevor Francis was sacked in 1995, nobody has survived in that job longer than Brian Laws. Brian, even today in 2020, that's got to be a claim to fame and something that you can look back on with pride, isn't it?
Well, especially under the modern management system now, whereas 12 months, you're delighted to get 12 months, let alone 3 years. It's incredible. And especially under the circumstances when I found myself at Sheffield Wednesday as well. Where we lost all of our directors and obviously we had a disgruntled chairman and a lot of issues and problems, and finances were absolutely at its lowest. So, yeah, I suppose it's a great achievement.
Yeah, I think finances are a lot different now. I'll ask you in a minute whether you would have preferred to serve this owner, who's certainly not short of a bob or two, than the board, which didn't really have an owner at the time. It was more a collective. We'll come to that in a minute. Dom Howson, meanwhile, nobody better placed than you, because every time Sheffield Wednesday changed their manager, you're on holiday. And this time was no different, mate.
I thought it would be safe, but second lockdown, no, destroyed any chances of a normal week off. Yeah, so, just a typical week, really, in the Sheffield Wednesday world, as Brian and you well know. That, whenever you think, it's going to be a calm period, there's not too much happening, just be a straightforward international break. No, lo and behold, one manager goes, new manager comes in, new era.
Yeah, I think it was done quite deliberately, Dom, to you in this instance. Dom now of Yorkshire Live. He had a free transfer from the Sheffield Star, you may remember, not very long ago. Brian, before we talk about Tony Pulis, who I know that you know well, it would have been, or could have been, so different maybe under this regime, because whatever critics Stepon Chansiri has, the one thing he doesn't lack is commitment. And the one thing Sheffield Wednesday don't like is money, not in this era.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. For all that's happened since Chansiri has taken over, and I have to say, great credit to him. He has put a lot of money into this football club with very little reward, and I think that probably hurts him more than anything. And there's probably a lot of factors in why he hasn't achieved that. And one of the ones that seems to stand out quite significantly is maybe he's not getting the good advice that he really wanted, and he's gone down the wrong road for sure.
Well, he's certainly going to get some forthright advice from Tony Pulis. He made that clear. Dom, you interviewed, you were on the journalist who interviewed Tony Pulis earlier this week, and he was pretty emphatic on that point, that whether Mr. Chansiri wanted to hear certain things or not, he would be hearing because he believed in total honesty. Is that really important, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely, Alan. I thought he spoke really well. He used charm, charisma, pretty much everything that we expected from Tony Pulis at his first press call. And it was unusual for him in the sense that it was a virtual one, probably the first time he's ever done that in his career. But I thought that, he made a great first impression, and I think actually he won over a lot of the Wednesday fans out there who were maybe sceptical of the appointment. We know that he wasn't necessarily, universally popular appointment, and that it has divided opinion. But I think that the fans, a lot of them out there, they liked what he had to say, and I think, he made some, good comments in the, they're looking to catch up on the rivals down the road, bringing Kieran Westwood back into the fold. And I think that, they liked sort of the cut of his jib, really, and what he had to say, and his plans for the future.
Yeah, an experienced manager knew all the right things to say, all the right buttons to press. He's not 62 years old and been in management for half his life for nothing. Brian, it was also the longest time that I've ever seen Tony Pulis sitting down, because he normally conducts his press conferences half on the move, I've noticed over the years. Can't get him to sit down.
Yeah, no, he's very much, he's always on his feet, isn't he? And always on the move. And he hates standing still. He's always on the move. And it would be very strange for him, as Dom has mentioned, about, going through this. I was speaking to him on Sunday, and one of the things he obviously is going to get used to, something he's never dealt with before, is with COVID-19 now, where there's no support. He's not experienced that. And that's something that's very new to him. Also, the virtual side of things, contact with the press and so on, is going to be a different avenue for him, and something that he'll have to get used to for a little while.
Yeah, touching on a very important point there, Brian. I mean, new managers invariably talk to their predecessors. In Tony Pulis' case, there are a lot of predecessors to choose from, including yourself. How well do you know him? And without breaking any confidences, what sort of areas do you think you might have been able to help him with?
Well, I spoke to Tony at length on Sunday. He was travelling up to Sheffield, and yeah, listen, a good manager, and he's been in the game a long time. He's got to use the other tools that is available to him. Getting information as much as possible, and collating as much information as possible from all different sources to try and get a real good feel of the club, of the players, about what's been going on. And he will get some real honest opinions, people that he trusts, and he'll formulate out of that a way to move forward and how he's going to progress with the team and with the club.
What did you detect from his mood? Did you sense an excitement, or a raring to go? Because he's been out of the game for over a year.
Yeah, he was fed up, that's for sure. He was fed up at home, getting under his wife's feet, and he's itching to. He's a football man, and that's what he's done most of his life. And he thinks Wednesday, like all managers that have been involved with Sheffield Wednesday, they know it's a massive club, a club that can actually take you with the right finances, with the right direction, have still a good chance of Premiership football. It's not a club on decline. It's a club that has a good foundation, and certainly got the finances. If Mr. Chansiri continues to support the club in the way he has, then you've got as good a chance as anyone. And Tony knows that. He's a seasonal winner. He understands what's required, particularly in the Championship, and he loves the fact that he can prove people wrong. And there's a lot of people who are out there, thinking that he's finished, he's a bit old school, and he'd be delighted to actually, prove everybody wrong.
Yeah, I imagine there's no bigger motivator for a manager of his age and experience than to be called a dinosaur, which is entirely disrespectful. But that's the kind of comment that you're talking about there, Brian, I think.
Yeah, he's been through management for so long. He said, he's listened and heard and seen visually what's been spoken about his career and how he approaches. But he doesn't give a jot. Really doesn't care, about those kind of issues. It doesn't affect him whatsoever. He's very, very strong-minded, and he knows what he wants to do, and he knows how to get there. And I think that's going to be a valuable tool for him going into Wednesday, because I think the club have sort of worked but never worked together I got that impression that the club are not really working together in the same way. And I think Tony has the tools to actually pull all that together.
That's interesting. And certainly he's had some very together dressing rooms over the years, not least at Stoke. Dom, it's pretty clear from Tony Pulis what he said, and certainly what I heard in the run-up to his appointment, that it was viewed far more than just an SOS and a firefighting job to keep Sheffield Wednesday in the Premier League. You got the feeling from Tony Pulis that wouldn't have turned him on. It had to be something longer term.
Yeah, it did. We know that he had conversations with the club last year before Gary Monk's appointment. He didn't feel that it was right then, but he's been out of the game, as Brian touched on, for 18 months or so. And at Tony Pulis's age, 62, 28 years in management, he'd be looking at this, and I think he'd probably admit this if you asked him publicly, that when you look at all the other clubs he's managed, this is probably the biggest challenge and the biggest club that he's managed in his career. So he would have looked at it and gone that if you can be the one to get this right, if you can turn things around and get Wednesday back into the Premier League after nearly 21 years, you go down as a Sheffield Wednesday legend, and you'll get talked about in the same conversation as Big Ron, Trevor Francis, Jack Charlton. And I think he would have found that all very sort of exciting. And I thought it was very inside, he's clearly done his history, and we know he loves history anyway. But speaking to Brian, I don't know. I mean, Brian might be able to shed any more light on, has he spoken to any other sort of former Wednesday managers or people connected to the club? It'd be interesting. But he did sort of mention, one of his good friends, Big Sam Ellis, and then you've got, it was Don Megson who gave him his playing career debut back in '66. So, you can't, when you're talking about wealth of experience, he does tick all those boxes, doesn't he, really? And crucially, from a Sheffield Wednesday perspective, he's never been relegated as a player or a manager in his career.
No, I mean, that is
Remarkable. Yes, Brian, sorry.
Yeah, that is some going, and that's a hell of a record, and you won't want to blemish that. That's for sure. He certainly wouldn't be taking the job. He didn't think that, and he does believe that Wednesday have a great opportunity if everybody pulls in the right direction, and he will. He's got a wealth of experience, wealth of knowledge, and he will not be persuaded to do it differently, and. He's very strong-minded, and has already said, to Mr. Chansiri that, I'll be honest, you might not like it, you might not have heard these words coming out of the manager's mouth, but I'll tell you how it is, and that's the way he is, and he will not, buckle under that at all. There's no niceties in that sense. He will just give it you straight between the eyes, and if you don't like it, so be it.
Yeah, because he perhaps doesn't have the fear element that could occupy the mind of a manager early in his career, Brian. What am I to lose? I'm just going to go all out for this. I'm going to tell the owner exactly what I think needs to be done. And there's a strength in that, surely, that he actually financially won't need the job. He just wants it psychologically.
Yeah, you're right, Alan. He's not a young manager who will feel not having the confidence to actually speak to a chairman or to be forthright with a chairman for fear of probably losing his job. He doesn't need the job in terms of finance. That's not the case at all. That's not what he's there for. What he is there, he's there to get the fires burning again, wanting to win games. He knows what to do. And he'll pull all the resources possible. People talking about this long ball, this tactics. He will use the resources that he has available to him, and he will squeeze out every ounce that he can from every player to make sure that they max out. And and he has got good quality players in there. So footballers in there, mixed up with everything else. So I think, he'll certainly look at every individual and try and get the best out of them.
Yeah, and just following on from your point about his forthright nature, I mean, even much earlier in his career, if you look at his record, he's had fallouts with chairman which have led to a parting of the ways. I mean, he's not afraid to stick to his guns, is he?
No, you're right, and that's why he was totally honest with the chairman, and if the chairman still wants to continue the conversation in terms of employment, then he's more than happy to do that. But he won't change his ways in that way, and I think that's probably what Mr. Chansiri needs. He needs a strong, firm hand, and one that will not buckle, one will stick to his guns, and I'm sure with the support that he can give Tony, I think it could be a really good appointment and a good combination.
Yeah, and I think full marks today upon Chansiri as well for recognising in Tony Pulis a character who will speak his mind and not shying away from that, Dom. As Brian says, actually saying, okay, there's an honesty there, and I'm going to listen. That's great, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And I think actually another important point is that there've been times in the chairman's premiership where he's maybe been accused of dithering when it comes to decision making. But if you actually look at this managerial appointment, it's decisive action. That's what he's taken. He went in the international break. I feel it's time to make a change. He sacked Gary Monk, and then within 4 days, he brought in Tony Pulis, and Tony Pulis was his first choice. And he thinks that he's the right man to take the club forward. And I'm sure that there will be disagreements behind the scenes, and that Tony Pulis and Dapon Chansiri, they probably won't see eye to eye on the direction or every decision or everything that Tony Pulis believes needs to happen to make Sheffield Wednesday successful again. But I just think, for me, the most important thing right now that Wednesday need is stability. That there's been too much of a managerial merry-go-round really since Carlos Carvalho left in 2017. Now, I know Steve Bruce is a different case in that, but still they need now in Tony Pulis, what he has to be given is the tools to do the job and to be given multiple transfer windows. But I feel as if we've been here before. This is what we probably said about Gary Monk. We may have even said it about Jos Lukai, but that's actually what needs to happen, right? And anybody who thinks that Tony Pulis is overnight and with a magic going to turn this team from where they are right now, second from bottom, into promotion contenders, I think they need to have a reality check that they're a long way off that. And that's why he needs January, he needs the next summer, and he needs the next window after that. And then I think we can get to a point of where, after a couple of windows, we can then judge him more fairly when he's got his squad in place. But again, he's now inheriting 9 players that Gary Monk signed this summer. He started to bring in his own coaching staff. So it's time, patience, all the things you don't get in modern football, but that's what's needed and required right now.
Yeah, I mean, good points, because it requires, Brian, with biting the bullet and withstanding the odd buffeting where results don't go Sheffield Wednesday's way. In 20 years since the club exited the Premier League, they've had 14 previous managers, firing 13 of them, including your good self. So there's going to have to be some resolve, as Dom says, at some point here to say, okay, this is a difficult job, and just because results have gone awry doesn't mean to say we're going to have to change the manager yet again.
Yeah, I mean, the modern game is like a revolving door, and it's not a pleasant one, because like everything else, to build a machine that you want to work week in, week out, getting you results, and it's a marathon of a season. you've got to put a lot of things in place, and you've got to have a lot of people pulling in the right direction to achieve that. And managers just don't seem to get the time to achieve it. They're expecting miracles to happen. The new manager comes in and they're expected to win the next 3-4 games. It's just really unrealistic. I think you've got to look at the long term. I remember when I first went into management, I thought supporters in particular were very much in the thoughts of a new manager's come in, let's give him a chance, let's give him a couple of years. And they sort of lay off him a little bit, knowing as long as things are moving in the right direction, as long as the team are making progression, they're not winning every game, but they're making progression. You can see what these ideas that the managers bringing into the club, and it looks good, and we want a little bit more. And I think fans have gone away from that now. I don't know why and how that happened, but they've gone away from it now, and now they're sort of demanding success pretty quickly. And I don't know whether it's down to social media that's got a hand of it, but it's become really reckless. And the pressure on chairman, the pressure on chairman.
That's got a lot to do with it. Yeah, social media's got a lot to do with it, Brian. And as well with Tony Pulis, I mean, you've sort of said it's ridiculous that he's got this long ball label, but he's got it regardless. So he's perhaps got less tolerance and a shorter honeymoon period than most managers in terms of the fact that there was a section that kind of didn't want him. So it's almost as if he's got to have to produce an element of results fairly quickly, do you think?
Yeah, the thing is, I mean, every supporter wants a winning team, and not every team's going to win in the same way. Man City win games in a different way. Liverpool, because they have the resources, they can buy the best players in the world, and of course they can be the most attractive, but they've got the best athletes and the best players, so they're going to have a different style. But where Tony is, he has a style in his mind, but he will try and generate as much energy from the players that he has, and he's not one for really putting square pegs in round holes. He tries to be very, very simple. And if you're a left back, you're a left back. If you're a right back, you're a right back, unless there's an emergency somewhere along the line. And he won't be expecting players that, no disrespect, a left back playing a striker's role. He's not going to go down that avenue. He's going to keep it very, very simple, so the players will have a real easy understanding, because at the end of the day, that's what they're built for. They're built to be a left back, they're built to be a right back, a striker, or a midfield player, or a number 10, whatever. He will just stick to the same principle.
Right.
On the style of play point, sorry to butt in, Alan, I was just going to add that if you actually look at the last 2 decades, and you've been covering Sheffield Wednesday all that time and more, but as you all know better than me, with the exception of Brian's teams played some good stuff, Carlos's year, the playoff final. When you're talking about entertaining football, have Sheffield Wednesday really been renowned as much for that over the last 20 years? And more importantly, where's it got them? They are still outside of the Premier League. So I think, to me, it's got to the point of where results, the be all and end all. That's the most important thing. That's what, and if Tony Pulis gets that, then people will be delighted.
Yeah, great reality check to end part 1, and to top up the point that Dom excellently made there. 2 of the most successful managers, Jack Charlton and then Howard Wilkinson, were not particularly renowned for the finery of the football, more for the fact that it was very effective. And I think that those who've dismissed Tony Pulis as a long ball merchant, as it were, have totally missed the point of the appointment, and Dom's made that point excellently. Brian has as well. In part 2, we're going to maybe talk more specifics about certain individuals that might flourish under Tony Pulis, certain ones that have been discussed, particularly like Barry Bannon, and the goalkeeping situation, which is particularly interesting. So lots more to talk about with these guys, Dom Howson and Brian Laws, in just a couple of minutes. Do hope you can rejoin us then.